most secretive bomber ever built. A plane so advanced, the government kept it hidden for decades. It flew farther than any combat aircraft before it. It struck targets no other jet could reach. And every single time it showed up, the enemy never even knew it was coming. We are talking about the B-2 Spirit. And the missions it flew, the ones the government has finally let us see, are some of the most jaw-dropping stories in American military history. But here is the part that most people have never heard. One of those missions lasted over 44 hours. Another one just happened in 2025, and it just rewrote the history books entirely. Stay right here, because what you are about to hear is the full, declassified story of every combat mission the B-2 Spirit has ever flown. Introduction. This is the story of a flying wing that changed warfare forever. A bomber that flew from Missouri to the other side of the world, dropped its bombs with pinpoint accuracy, and came home without a scratch, without ever being detected. The B-2 Spirit is not just a plane, it is a statement. A message to every adversary on Earth that says we can reach you anywhere, at any time, without warning. And for the first time, we have the full picture. Every combat mission, every target, every record broken. So if you are someone who believes in American air power and the men and women who carry it forward, drop a comment below and tell us, which B-2 mission do you think was the most important? We want to hear from you. Now let's get into it. Section 1. What is the B-2 Spirit? Before we get to the missions, you need to understand what makes this aircraft unlike anything else on Earth. The B-2 Spirit is a stealth bomber, but calling it just a stealth bomber is like calling a Navy SEAL just a swimmer. That does not even begin to cover it. It has a wingspan of 172 feet wider than a Boeing 737. But from certain angles, on radar, it looks no bigger than a small bird. That is because of its flying wing design. No tail, no vertical surfaces. The entire aircraft is one smooth, curved shape built to scatter radar signals in every direction except back to the enemy. It carries up to 40,000 pounds of bombs. It can hit 2 targets at the same time with 2 different weapons. It can fly over 11,000 miles without stopping, and with aerial refueling, that range becomes essentially unlimited. Northrop Grumman built 21 of them. Each one cost over $2 billion. Today, only 19 remain in service. Every single one is based at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. That is the only place in the world where B-2s are stationed, and every single combat mission the B-2 has ever flown it launched from that one base. Now let's talk about what happened when those jets went to war. Section 2, Mission 1, Operation Allied Force, Kosovo 1999. The B-2's combat story begins in the spring of 1999. NATO was at war with Serbia. The Serbian military was carrying out ethnic cleansing in Kosovo. The alliance needed to strike hard, fast, and precisely. But Serbian air defenses were some of the strongest in Europe at the time. They had surface-to-air missiles. They had layered radar coverage. They had already shot down an American F-117, the previous generation stealth jet, just days into the conflict. The U.S. Air Force needed something those defenses had never seen before. So on the night of March 23, 1999, 2 B-2 Spirits lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. They crossed the Atlantic. They entered Serbian airspace at night, completely undetected. They hit their targets with satellite-guided bombs, and they flew all the way back home. Each mission lasted more than 30 hours, and the results were staggering. The B-2s flew less than 1% of all NATO sorties in the first 8 weeks, but they were responsible for destroying 33% of all Serbian targets. One plane, one crew, 1% of the flights, 1/3 of the damage. That is what a B-2 can do. There is also a darker footnote to this campaign that has never fully been explained. The Chinese embassy in Belgrade was bombed during this operation. The U.S. said it was a targeting error, The Chinese called it deliberate. What has been alleged, though never officially confirmed, is that a B-2 Spirit dropped those bombs. That allegation was never fully resolved. And to this day, it remains one of the more controversial moments tied to this aircraft. But the Kosovo campaign proves something that the Air Force had been promising for decades. Stealth bombers flying from the continental U.S. could reach any target on Earth and hit it with precision without an airbase nearby, without fighter escort, and without being seen. Before we go any further, take 5 seconds and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of people watching right now are not subscribed, and it costs you absolutely nothing. If you believe American air power stories deserve to be told, that subscribe button is how you say so. Now let's keep going. Section 3, Mission 2. Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan 2001. 2 years passed, and then came September 11th, 2001. 2 weeks after the attacks, the U.S. launched Operation Enduring Freedom. The goal was clear: destroy the Taliban regime in Afghanistan and dismantle the Al-Qaeda network that had planned the attacks. The problem was the geography. Afghanistan is halfway around the world. There were no nearby U.S. air bases available in those early days. So the B-2 was called in, and what followed became the longest combat air mission in human history. It was night 2 of the air campaign. Major Melvin Diale and Captain Brian Neal climbed into the cockpit of a B-2 called the Spirit of America at Whiteman Air Force Base. They flew west, crossing the Pacific Ocean. A crossing that alone took 24 hours. They refueled in the air over California, Hawaii, and Guam. They entered Afghan airspace. They spent 2 hours flying over enemy territory, using onboard radar to map targets before releasing their bombs. Then they exited, refueled again, and kept going. When the mission ended and the Spirit of America touched down at Diego Garcia, the crew had been in the air for 44.3 hours. The plane itself ran its engines for 70 consecutive hours before returning to Missouri with only a 45-minute stop for fuel and oil. Engines never fully shut down. That record, 44 hours in the air on a single combat mission, has never been broken. Not by any aircraft, not in any war. It still stands today. 5 other B-2s flew similar missions during those opening nights of the Afghanistan campaign. Together, they struck Taliban training camps, bunkers, cave systems, and command facilities across the country, and not one of them was ever detected by enemy radar. Section 4, Mission 3. Operation Iraqi Freedom, Iraq 2003. By 2003, the B-2 had already proven itself twice, but what happened in Iraq was a different level entirely. Operation Iraqi Freedom was a full-scale invasion. The B-2s did not just fly in from Missouri this time. For the first time ever, the Air Force forward deployed B-2s to a location closer to the fight, believed to be Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean. The numbers from this campaign are almost hard to believe. The B-2 flew 49 total sorties during the war, 22 from that forward operating location, and 27 from Whiteman Air Force Base back in Missouri. Together, they struck over 600 targets. They released more than 1.5 million pounds of munitions. 600 targets. 1.5 million pounds of bombs. The B-2s went after hardened command bunkers, air defense systems. Republican Guard divisions dug in near Baghdad. High-value leadership targets. They used their stealth to fly directly into the most heavily defended areas of Iraq, areas where no other aircraft could safely operate, and they hit exactly what they aimed at. This campaign showed that the B-2 was not just a precision weapon for isolated strikes. It could function as the backbone of an entire air campaign. And still not a scratch. Not a single B-2 was ever hit by enemy fire. Section 5, Libya, twice, 2011 and 2017. The B-2's next call came in 2011 over North Africa. Colonel Muammar Gaddafi was threatening to massacre civilians across Libya. The United Nations authorized a no-fly zone. NATO was tasked to enforce it, and to knock out Libya's air defenses fast enough to make that no-fly zone real, they needed the B-2. In the opening hours of Operation Odyssey Dawn, B-2 Spirits were the very first aircraft in. They hit a Libyan airfield and dropped 40 bombs in a single pass. Within hours, Libya's air defense network was crippled. The no-fly zone became a reality. That was one strike, one deployment. Job done. But the B-2 came back to Libya 6 years later. In 2017, intelligence revealed an ISIS training camp operating inside Libya. The camp was training fighters to carry out attacks across North Africa and Europe. The decision was made to destroy it completely. 2 B-2 Spirits flew a nonstop intercontinental mission directly to that camp. They dropped approximately 180 500-pound JDAM bombs. After the B-2s hit the camp, MQ-9 Reaper drones followed up with Hellfire missiles to finish off any survivors. The result, around 85 militants killed. The camp destroyed 2 missions over Libya, 2 completely different conflicts, 2 complete successes, and the B-2 never stayed long enough to be seen. Section 6 Yemen, the Houthi strikes October 2024. Now we are getting into very recent history. And this is where the B-2's story takes a sharp, modern turn. By 2024, the Houthi movement in Yemen had been attacking U.S. Navy ships and commercial vessels in the Red Sea for months. They were using underground weapons storage facilities, deeply buried, hardened bunkers that conventional airstrikes could not reach. The U.S. needed something that could go underground. On October 16, 2024, B-2 Spirit stealth bombers deployed to Yemen and dropped massive ordnance penetrators, the GBU-57, on Houthi underground weapons storage sites. The GBU-57 weighs 30,000 pounds. It is the largest non-nuclear bomb in the U.S. arsenal. And before this mission, it had never been used in actual combat. The B-2 is the only aircraft in the world capable of carrying it. This was a message, not just to the Houthis, to every adversary watching. If you bury your weapons underground, the U.S. can still reach them, and when the B-2 shows up, there is no wall thick enough. But as significant as that moment was, it was just a warm-up. Section 7 Operation Midnight Hammer, the biggest B-2 mission in history, June 2025. This is the one that changed everything. And it happened just weeks ago. For years, Iran had been pushing forward with its nuclear program. Underground enrichment facilities, hardened bunkers buried deep beneath mountains, facilities that were specifically engineered to survive conventional airstrikes. Even the most powerful bunker busters on Earth were not designed for targets this deep. But then came Operation Midnight Hammer. Just after midnight on June 21st, 2025, 13 B-2 Spirit bombers lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. 13 planes. All at once. Here is what made this different from every previous mission. 6 of those B-2s flew west toward the Pacific, toward Guam. They were decoys. A deliberate misdirection to make Iran believe any incoming strike was coming from a completely different direction. The other 7 flew east, quietly, with minimal radio communications. For 18 hours, they crossed the Atlantic, crossed Europe, and approached Iranian airspace. Before the B-2s entered Iran, a U.S. submarine launched more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles at the Isfahan nuclear facility, timed to arrive precisely as the bombers came in. The submarine strikes and bomber strikes were synchronized to the minute. The 7 B-2s dropped 14 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator bombs on Fordo and Natanz, Iran's 2 most deeply buried nuclear enrichment sites. 14 30,000-pound bunker busters. In a single mission. This was the first time the GBU B-57 was used to its full intended capacity. The weapon, it was literally designed for fortified underground nuclear facilities, and this was the first time it ever hit one. Over 125 total aircraft were involved in the operation: fighter jets, refueling tankers, electronic warfare planes, the B-2s, and the submarine. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane said it clearly at the press conference the following morning. This was the largest B-2 operational strike in U.S. history, and the second longest B-2 mission ever flown, exceeded only by the missions flown over Afghanistan in the days after 9/11. The B-2s flew for 36 hours total. They were never detected on the way in. Not a single shot was fired at the strike package during the approach. 3 Iranian nuclear facilities, Fordo, Natanz, Isfahan, all struck in a single coordinated operation, and when it was over, the B-2s came home. Conclusion: 7 missions, 26 years of combat history. From the skies over Serbia to the mountains of Iran, the B-2 Spirit has done something no other aircraft in the world can claim. It has flown farther, hit harder, and stayed invisible longer than anything ever built. And every single time the U.S. needed to reach a target that nobody else could touch, the B-2 was the answer. The men and women of the 509th Bomb Wing at Whiteman Air Force Base have done something extraordinary. Mission after mission, without recognition, without fanfare. That is what silent strength looks like. If this story deserves to be heard, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who loves American military history. It is the best way to support this channel and keep these stories coming.